This is a test video to see if this works. So I recently found an article through Facebook on Jane Friedman's site on tropes called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And this was written not so long ago. I think it's like 7 days ago or something like that. So anyway, I thought I would just scroll through this article and react to it. And I don't know um, how this is going to go. So this is just really just this. So it says today's post is by romance author and book coach Trisha Jen Lower or something. Tropes are a staple of genre fiction. Some folks love to hate them. They even use tropey as a derogatory term, and yet writers still use them. And many writers still celebrate them. Why? Because tropes, simply put, are things like themes, plot devices, archetypes, and structures that pop up regularly in stories, especially stories within distinct genre categories. Tropes have developed from storytelling patterns appreciated by readers and writers alike. If you think about it, you'll likely have favorite tropes that draw you in, whether consciously, example, I'm looking for a fabulous enemies to lovers romance with an only one bed scene, or subconsciously, realizing that half the books on your shelf feature a protagonist battling against and ultimately overcoming an evil empire of some kind. Sorry if I start coughing in this video because I just recorded an hour and a half video about writing advice. So that's where we're at here. So this beginning, I'm going to react to it like I do my other things. So this is really, I haven't even screenshotted this, nothing. This is just the actual website. Ta-da, this is new. Never mind all the things that you see or don't see on this. I need a drink of water. I really did just record an hour and a half video. I didn't mean it for it to be that long, really. I just had a lot of things to say. What can you do? Drink your water. Yes, so yeah, tropes. I mean, I have I remember the last time I talked about fantasy tropes. It was also an article written by a romance author. So I'm wondering, where are the fantasy authors? Because there's lots of tropes in fantasy. I mean, of course, there's lots of tropes in every genre, but I mean, I write fantasy, and when I say there's an article on tropes by a romance author, I'm like, well, that doesn't apply to me. Why am I going to read an article about tropes from a romance author if I'm not a romance writer? And it's in general about tropes. Does the romance writer know about tropes outside of the genre? Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But that's sort of like the problem that I have. I mean, it's a personal problem, maybe. I don't know about you guys. So, I also want to say that the reason I decided to just see if I could just record this and do this thing is, honestly, making the slides takes a really long time, and I really wish I could just, sit down and record something easily without having to take so much time making those slides. I will still be making slides, okay? I will still be making the writers react slides, but sometimes if I just find an article like right away, or I don't want to put so much time, and it's nice to have recorded videos stacked up, so I don't have to keep you guys waiting for things. But yeah, anyway. Tropes are, let's see, simply put, I don't know if you can see my mouse. I think this is just recording the screen. I remember one time I tried to see if you could see my mouse when I moved them in the slides, but I don't think you can see my mouse. So think of this video as really unplanned, unhinged, just spur of the moment kind of thing. Tropes, simply put, are things like themes, plot devices, archetypes, and structures that pop up regularly in stories, especially stories with distinct genre categories. Yes. Yes, they are. Tropes have developed from storytelling patterns appreciated by readers and writers alike. Yes. Yes, they have. If you think about it, you likely have favorite tropes that draw you in. Yes. Okay. When I think about all the books that I have, are there tropes that draw me in? I really don't. I just like books with cats in them and books where kids, like young kids, go on adventures, because when I was a kid I always liked to read books about kids going on adventures and the adults aren't saying anything about them going to dangerous places, because the kids, they're so brave, you know. I always wanted to be like, when I was a kid, to have a group of friends that we would go off and go on adventures, you know. I didn't have any friends really, elementary school and stuff like that. So it was kind of like, oh, that's kind of nice. I wish I could do that. So, and I still like that. I still like reading about kids going on adventures and learning about friendship and bravery and stuff. It's just nice. It's just so simple and nice. And all those YA fantasy that are about romance and so much romance. And romance is nice and good and sweet and everything, but sometimes I want something fresh and different. And middle grade fantasy really offers that for me personally. Anyway, that was a tangent. The good. Tropes are tools for readers and for writers. Okay. I really am reading this article for the first time. I heard about it on a Facebook group and I was like, I want to react to that. Tropes. My ear itches. Okay. Tropes help readers find stories with elements they already know and like. Yeah, okay. Readers, especially those who read genre fiction like romance, mystery, thriller, science fiction, and fantasy, have specific tastes around the types of stories they enjoy. When they read back cover copy, when they read back cover copy, that indicates there's something missing in that sentence, I swear. This book has your favorite elements. They're more likely to take that book home and read it. Yeah. Okay. Just as we gravitate toward friend groups with similar interests or favorite foods for meals and snacks, readers gravitate toward stories they already know they will likely enjoy. Yeah, they would. If I'm trying out a new restaurant, I'll often scan the menu for a variation on staples like the club sandwich or fish and chips, because I know I usually like those dishes and it's fun to see how different chefs make their version of a common dish. Fish and chips, huh? Is this writer British or something? Because fish and chips is a really British thing, isn't it? Or am I stereotyping? I'm sorry if I'm stereotyping. The same goes for stories. Tropes allow readers to experiment with new authors and new books in a safe way because they're already familiar with some elements of the story. Okay. Yeah. The restaurant analogy doesn't apply to me particularly. I would usually see because I can't eat spicy food. I really can't do spicy food. So I would just see the availability of non-spicy food and then see the availability of foods that I am, types of ingredients that I like. Is that a weird thing to say? I mean, so I like, if I feel for beef, for example, I would just go to the section where they have the beef on the menu and then just see if there's anything non-spicy, and then I would see if there's anything that, I don't know, tickles my fancy. I won't look for, like, I like, what do I like? What do I like? Honestly, what do I like? I like, I don't know. I like a good burger, but I wouldn't like look for burger variations. I mean, I'm really a person when I go to a restaurant that it's really what do I feel for today? It's not like I would always eat like a burger if I like a burger, I don't know. What are you like? How do you like choose make a dish from a restaurant that you've never been to before? Like, you look at the menu, what are you looking for? Are you looking for something familiar? Or are you looking for like a variation of something you're familiar with? Or are you just looking for like, oh, I like cream of mushroom type of food, cream of mushroom tastes. I like things with mushrooms in them. So I'm just going to look for things with mushrooms in them. Are you looking for like an ingredient? Like, how do you go about it? How do people choose from menus? That's the thing. That's something interesting thing to talk about with your friends. That'd be a fun topic. Let's move on from this tangent. Where were we? Where were we? That's the thing, that these aren't slides. I'm just looking at the same goes for stories. Oh, do you see it when I highlight the screen? Do you see I highlighted it? Do you see that? I don't know. Where were we? Okay, tropes are a grab bag of elements for writers to play with. I need another drink. I'll drink some coffee, you drink your water. Seems to be a thing I'm saying recently. Whether we're looking at overarching structural tropes in fantasy and sci-fi novels or relationship elements in romance novels, tropes give us a wide array of components to experiment with as we write. Yes. Think about it. How many books or movies can you name that feature one or more of the following tropes? Okay. A grumpy or quirky detective. Isn't that like Sherlock Holmes? A chosen one who must save the world. Pokemon? Ash? Or Harry Potter? Was he supposed to save the world? Does he do any world saving? Does Harry Potter is definitely the chosen one. Oh, here's a Frodo. Lord of the Rings. Yes, okay. Love triangle. You see, I don't really read or watch romance movies and stuff like that. So, love triangle. Can't think of any. I really can't think of any. Love triangle. Do you know any? I mean, I can think of like probably you just find it in anime, but I don't know. Okay. An evil leader who wants all the power for themselves. Voldemort. Movies, books or movies. I have to name a book or a movie, so it can't be like a character. Okay. Evil leader who wants all the power for themselves. What is there? What is there? Really? Something. What have I seen? What have I seen? What have I seen? What have I seen? I haven't really been watching any movies recently. I haven't been reading any sort of mainstream trendy books either. Thinking about it. Let's see. Who knows? Can you think of something? I'm just blanking out. I mean, I was doing a completely different video before this. My brain might just be so tired. Okay. Damsel in distress. I mean, wait, an evil leader who wants all power from themselves? How about, wait, does he want all power from himself? Kind of. Well, I'm thinking about the Mario movie. Because I did watch that. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. It was also good because I'd been watching Mario World 2 gameplays on YouTube a lot before that. I don't know. I was kind of in a phase of watching those. And so I kind of understood the world and stuff. So it was fun because I also had been watching those. Evil leader who wants all power from themselves. Evil leader. You're probably screaming in the comments about one of the movies. I don't know why I keep thinking about Avatar, but that's definitely not. I mean, there is a bad guy in Avatar, but it's kind of like gone into a different... Have you watched the recent Avatar? Have you? Because that was interesting in a slightly weird way, but interesting. Okay. Damsel in distress. I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean was kind of like that in the beginning. but she's pretty tough. So she wasn't like that later on. But I'm talking about Elizabeth Swann. She's not a damsel in distress, but okay, I got it. I got it. Disney movies. Disney movies are like that, aren't they? I mean, especially the older ones, like Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty. Oh, evil leader who wants power from themselves. I'd say The Little Mermaid. If you're thinking about in Disney and stuff. I mean, the Ursula, kind of like that. Yeah. Fake relationship. There are a lot of those, aren't there, out there right now? Fake relationship, like the forced marriage trope. Yeah, I'd say that's a fake relationship. Reluctant hero. I wrote a story with a reluctant hero. He was really reluctant. He really didn't want anything to do with anything. And only towards the very end did he actually feel like he cared. So, but he was fun to write. I liked writing him. An ensemble of unlikely companions. That's kind of like Lord of the Rings, though, isn't it? I mean, can't think of anything else. I mean, if you think about it, Mario movie is kind of like that. Mario, the games are always kind of like that anyway. I mean, he's pairing up with these little guys with mushroom heads. What are they called? I keep forgetting like the names of these characters because I'm not a gamer really, so I don't really. I tried Mario, okay, I tried the game, but I'm not a gamer. I've never really used those consoles really much throughout my life, so it was really hard for me to move the characters. How do you even manage to do the jump so high? I can't figure out how to jump high enough, especially with the elephant. Is just I just feel like giving up because it's so hard. I have no idea how to do it. Okay. It says you can probably come up with a long list, right? No, I did not. I failed miserably. Maybe you guys did better. Huh. After all, as Mark Twain wrote in the autobiography of Mark Twain, there is no such thing as a new idea. It is impossible. We simply take a lot of old ideas and put them into a sort of mental kaleidoscope. We give them a turn and they make new and curious combinations. We keep on turning and making new combinations indefinitely, but they are the same old pieces of colored glass that have been in use through all the ages. And that, my friends, is the goal, to take ideas and story components and put them together in new and interesting ways. The key to using tropes well is to tweak them so that, while still familiar enough to be recognizable and draw a reader in, you've used the tropes in unique, memorable ways, rather than simply repeating the same thing over and over. Yeah, I think that's a good thing that Mark Twain said. Mental kaleidoscope. Kaleidoscope is a really good way of when people say you just recycled the tropes or that you put a twist on a trope. That is what he's basically talking about, isn't it? They are the same old pieces of colored glass that have been in use through all the ages. Yes. I mean, I see some writers on Facebook being like, I'm worried that my story isn't original. I'm worried that this game had used something that sounds like my story. But the thing is, you wrote it. You are unique, aren't you? I think you're pretty unique, don't you think so? So if you wrote it and you're unique, then your story is unique. There is no other voice that is like yours. And besides, your personal perspectives and everything come into play when you're writing a story. So it's really just that, right? I mean, you can really write whatever you want to write, not worrying about if it's original or not, because it is already, because you're using it. And these tropes, you can do whatever you want to do with them. I think that you don't even have to change them. If you don't want to, you don't have to change them at all. Besides, I mean, there's only so much of a new thing anyway. You can't get any newer, right? I mean, you make new and curious combinations, but I mean, there comes a point where there is no such thing as a new idea. There is such thing as your idea, and your idea is unique. I'm probably talking in circles. You're probably tired of that. Okay. So yeah, so in my own writing, I do take the current story that I'm actually rewriting is a twist on The Chosen One. So, yeah. So, there is not one chosen one. That's the twist. And the way that it happens in the end is different than what you would expect to have happened to a chosen one. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. Because I do like a good chosen one story. I mean, but it's not obvious from the start either. I mean, maybe it is a little obvious, but that's okay because I like it. And if you like it, it's going to appear in your writing. It's really easy to tell if some writer wrote a story just because they liked it, because then you enjoy it too, reading it. You enjoy reading it and you see it seeps through that this author really enjoyed writing this story. Because I can feel that when I read stories. Let's get into the bad, where she's going to say this writer. Who is her name? Trisha. Trisha? Okay. Trisha. The bad. Tropes used poorly or in boring, predictable ways annoy readers. When writers don't do the work to use tropes in surprising ways, readers get bored. Overused tropes plopped into a story without something transforming or fresh leads to predictable stories. That's when readers toss out the insult of lazy writing. On enemies to lovers romance, forgive me for using this example again, but it's one of my absolute favorites, without a compelling layered reason for being enemies feels forced. The surface reason for being enemies is usually not the real reason why the two characters like one another, even if they think it is. The layers of emotional depth a writer can build using backstory and story present. Story present? What's story present? Backstory and story present. You mean the current story, right? Yeah, I think so. Bit by bit to make an enemies to lovers trope feel fresh is what makes it an intriguing take on the trope rather than unnecessary conflict for the sake of keywords. Yeah. So it's kind of like when a really nice fantasy, I keep bringing up fantasy because I'm a fantasy writer and I do read a lot of fantasy books, but when a story brings out romance for the sake of it, it's like, it was fine. It's been fine without. Why did you bring it in? You just completely ruined it. That's what it feels like when it seems like forced. Or characters just having a romance conflict moment for the sake of having a romance conflict moment. This is gonna be, I have a video up about books that drove me crazy. And in this video, I do talk about the Shadow and Bone trilogy because that drove me crazy. I know it's a popular book. I know. I hear that the Netflix version was so much better, so maybe you'd rather watch it than read it, in my opinion. After reading that series, I cannot read a Leigh Bardugo book without thinking of that type of character in writing. I know people are saying Six of Crows is good, but I just can't get into it because of the first series just completely ruined it for me, personally. Anyway, so I have an opinion that some of the romance in Shadow and Bone was just like romance conflict for the sake of romance conflict. It's like, why are these characters even arguing about this thing? Like, it's just completely ruining the story. Like, they didn't have to do this. They didn't have to. Oh my gosh, the middle book was just so awful with this. It just completely went into middle book syndrome, which is being slow and sluggish and just drama for the sake of drama. Speaking of drama for the sake of drama, the Star Daughter by Shveta, I'm not saying her name right, Thakrar, I think it was. That was also another book that drove me crazy. It's in that video if you want to check it out. It was really conflict for the sake of conflict, drama for the sake of drama, romance for the sake of romance. It just like, and the world building was so interesting and fantastic, and it was just the plot. It was just ruined by those things, and I was like, oh, I really wanted to like this book, but it was just ruined by this. I wouldn't call it lazy writing. I would just call it trying to check all the trope boxes kind of writing. I really wish maybe she would write another book set in that same world, and I wish she would, because it's an interesting world. It really was, with this culture, Indian culture, and stars and celestial beings. I mean, it was really interesting, but it was just ruined by this unnecessary drama. I just wish it was better. Anyway. Okay, so where were we? Okay, when a trope gets used in a way that's too similar to another work, it feels to many readers like the same story with new character names. This is often how people describe Hallmark movies or Nicholas Sparks novels. Huh, I didn't know that. Well, I understand Hallmark's movies, but not Nicholas Sparks novels. I've never read any of those books. Anyway. But many moviegoers and readers love them. Why? Because they recognize the storytelling patterns and elements that they like and are comforted by knowing how the story will progress. Yeah, that is one thing. Okay, so I read, what's it called? Sky Hunter and Steel Striker novels. Oh, I completely forgot the author. It was a dystopian fantasy, and at the time when it came out, it was way after Hunger Games, and everything of dystopian fantasy trend had already gone way by, and it was just really cliche dystopian fantasy, but I enjoyed it because I knew exactly what was going to happen, and it was also written well. I liked the characters. I mean, at least one of the characters. I liked her very well. Oh, I completely forgot the name of the author. Mary Lou, I think, yeah. She wrote a duology, a dystopian fantasy duology. And it was just really cliche dystopian plot, but I liked it, okay? Probably for this reason. that because I recognized the patterns and elements, and I knew, okay, I know exactly what's going to happen. I mean, she might put a little twist on it, but I know what's going to happen, and I know the characters are going to end up together, and I know there's going to be a revolution of some kind, and they're probably going to be fine. And so I enjoyed those books. I mean, in terms of plot wise, it was just cliche, and I would have given it like a low rating, but I liked it. So, I mean, some people might not like it, but I thought it was nice. It's just good old dystopian fantasy. I mean, kind of missed some of those, yeah. Kind of missed them, so it was good to see them again. So it says readers don't want to read the exact same story over and over again, but they do want to read similar stories that use loved elements in new ways. Tropes used poorly run the risk of becoming cliches. Yeah, so Shadow and Bone didn't do a very good job with that. The Sky Hunter and Steel Striker, the duology, that did well, in my opinion. It might just be a personal preference thing. I mean, some people are going to like it, some people are going to hate it. It's just the thing with books. The ugly. Writers can stuff too many tropes into their story. Tropes are often confused with cliches. Tropes in and of themselves are not so bad, as we've already discussed. Cliches and stereotypes, however, are ideas or patterns that are no longer effective storytelling or enjoyable for readers because they are so overused in the same boring way, or are no longer acceptable to readers that they become a turn-off rather than a turn-on. Trope stuffing happens when a writer throws every trope they can think of into a novel in an effort to try to appeal to all readers or all keyword searches at a retailer like Amazon. You'd never toss random spices from your spice rack onto your food. Okay. with no intentionality for what flavors go together and what quantity works. I just kind of imagine someone doing that for like a challenge video or something, and it sounded funny. A few tropes used thoughtfully and intentionally will create a much more interesting and cohesive story than one in which every possible trope is used. A few tropes thoughtfully and intentionally used thoughtfully will create a much more interesting and cohesive story than one in which every possible trope is used. Yeah, it should be used thoughtfully and intentionally, I would think. Cliches and stereotypes can be boring and almost as often offensive to readers. We are realizing that a lot of stories we've loved are problematic, and some tropes that used to be common have become unacceptable. The damsel in distress who needs the big suave man to come and save her because she's incapable of helping herself. The evil villain with no backstory and no depth. That token diverse side character who is immediately killed off or sent on a pointless side quest. The all-white, all-male, all-straight ensemble cast of heroes or anti-heroes. Being intentional about writing the world we live in, the world we want to live in, is an important consideration when choosing tropes. I'm sort of pausing a moment because I'm sort of pausing because the evil villain with no backstory, no depth. Okay, so if the evil villain has no backstory, that is a problem. But an evil villain doesn't always have to have depth, I don't think. Some evil villain just sounds redundant, actually. Aren't villains all evil? Aren't all villains evil? I need a drink. I've probably been talking for like 3 hours. Oh gosh. Evil villain with no backstory and no depth. I mean, if they just have depth, if they just have backstory and no depth, I think that's okay. Am I wrong? Or no? Or yes? I don't know. Okay, so for Harry Potter, I only watched the movies. Voldemort has backstory. Does he have depth? It doesn't seem like. But he's still a interesting villain, right? I mean, at least you're glad to see him gone, right? You want them gone. You're like, yay, he's finally destroyed. If you haven't watched Harry Potter, sorry, I just spoiled it for you, but yeah. Anyway, the token diverse side characters immediately killed off or sent on pointless quests. Yeah, that is, yeah. So, Shadow and Bone really did that well. I mean, well is in a sarcastic sense. In the second book, there were a bunch of characters that appeared suddenly with names and everything. They were so flat, I knew that they were going to die right away. And they did. I was right. They were immediately killed off. I mean, there was no point in even giving them names. I mean, that was problematic. So an all-white, all-male, all-straight ensemble cast of heroes. I mean, if your world is like that, if there's not much diversity for some world reason, I think it's okay. But I don't know. Does it depend on the world or something? What I'm saying is that there's no, like, if your world and culture is like that there is little diversity, then that is fine. Whether or not you choose to write a story taking place in that sort of world with the aim of publishing that story and getting it out there for people to read is another thing. You can write that story. You can write whatever story you want. it's about publishing that you need to think about whether you want that story to be set in that kind of place with those kinds of cliches and tropes and stereotypes. So, I don't know. I mean, I think this article was focusing on the kinds of stories for readers, meaning once you get that story published, and not necessarily while you're writing in a story. You could be writing a story with no intention of publishing it too, you know. So, but if you're intending on publishing it, you might wanna think about the setting of the story and what kind of characters are in your story. You might think about that. Or you might say that that it is an all-white cast, but that this is what the world is like. Maybe you would have a moment, you know, if you felt like it, if it was natural for, I mean, but what is really, what I'm trying to get at is that if your world, question, if your world, culture and everything happens to not have much diversity at the time of setting that you're writing it in, isn't it actually weird to have diversity? You can't just write diversity for the sake of diversity either, you know, right? So, I don't know. I don't know. What do you think about diversity in fiction? I mean, diversity can mean different things. You can have an all-white cast, but some of them could be straight, some of them could be gay, some of them could be queer, or whatever you want. Or you could have all male, and some of them could be, they're not born male, transgender, or queer, or, sorry, I'm not the person to be talking about this because I'm not really a diverse person myself, but although I am ace, so don't know. Anyway, I don't know where that thought was going, but like, you don't have to have diversity if your world doesn't have diversity. Or do you have to force diversity into your worlds these days? Or you don't have to? I don't know. Comment down below. Challenge. Take a look at your current work in progress. See if you can identify the tropes you're using. Make a list in one column, and then in the next column, brainstorm ideas for how you can play with those tropes in new, interesting, distinct ways. I don't think you have to do it. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. I don't think so. If you want to, you know, it's a good, interesting thing to do. If you're stuck, grab a few of your favorite books from your shelf and think about the tropes they use. What do you enjoy about those tropes, and in what ways did those authors that you enjoyed reading rework those tropes into something fresh? I mean, tropes don't always have to be fresh, right? No? Because you are writing the story, you are unique, so they don't actually have to be fresh, right? Because it's different if you write something and your friend writes something. You come from two different, completely unique perspectives. And so even if you take the same trope and write it as the trope is meant to be, without any twists and turns, it'd still be from a unique perspective. So it already is fresh in that way. Tropes are tools for our art. Just as a painter uses brushes and watercolors to blend and create, we as writers can experiment with, blend, and bend and upend tropes to make our stories both familiar and refreshing for our readers. I think, in my opinion, that refreshing for our readers, like, does everything always have to be new and refreshing? I don't think so. I mean, I feel like at some point we're going to run out of new. At some point. And maybe that point is coming up. Who knows? I feel like it is. There are some comments. by people here. And these comments are public, so maybe I'll read them. Let's see. I like this long one. There's a long one here. It's from 3 days ago. Wow. I recognize the value of tropes, and they are used heavily in sci-fi. This person's genre. However, I'm drawn toward avoiding tropes in my work. My series is built around alien invasion, but not only do they not come in guns blazing, we see them in their planning stages and my protagonists resolving how to build a defense. Instead of being ugly and bloodthirsty brutes, my aliens are a gazelle-like, intelligent, albeit vain, race of die-hard farmers who intend to convince mankind to peacefully surrender. That's interesting. Rather than a huge clash where mankind comes together overnight, holds hands, sings Kumbaya, and defeats the aliens, each nation wants to steal alien technology for their own political interests, only reluctantly working to form a coalition. In fact, my aliens don't actually invade until after Book 2, given humanity's disorganized international state of affairs, though it's a good thing I've given them 6 years to prepare. So this Gerald Tabbitt person is saying that they are drawn toward avoiding tropes in their work. So there is a point for me when I was trying to avoid tropes in my work. Like, I am just going to not do tropes because tropes are old. Why do we want to do tropes at all? I'm going to twist the heck out of every single trope there actually is. But I quickly realized that tropes are familiar to readers, so it's good to have some of them. Some of them being a little bit old, maybe. So I do have a guy, an antagonist, who wants to be powerful because he wants to be powerful because no reason, just because. So really, is that bad? I don't think it's bad. But he just does lots of bad things. He's also kind of like I wouldn't say he's also a twist on another trope, but I didn't think to plot-wise necessary to put any particular twist on him, because sometimes in the world, like when you're listening to the news and stuff, there are stories of people who are just bad people just because maybe they thought it was fun, which is horrible, but there are just some bad people in the world. And I think that it's fine to just have people who just do bad things just because they can, and you don't have to put a particular spin on it or anything. I mean, maybe you do give a little bit of backstory or something, but people can be bad people sometimes. And that's not, I mean, that's real, that's real life. That's not any particular trope or anything. I mean, the world isn't built on tropes, obviously. Or maybe the world is built on tropes. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is that there are tropes in the world and it's fine to write them. You have to make them, you can't make them sound like they were put in there because you want to check all the trope boxes. It has to make sense for the story. So overall, this article seems like they want you to take a trope and put a spin on it. You have to, you gotta do that. Because while some tropes can be comfortable for some readers, If the tropes are too predictable, it would be boring and annoying to readers. But the thing is, you can't please everyone. That's the thing. Some people, if some people like it, then like it. I mean, I think the ultimate thing that you need to be thinking about as a writer, the ultimate thing you need to do as a writer is write a story that you enjoy. That's all you need to do. That really is all you need to do. You don't have to think about all these tropes and predictability and if you're going to annoy your readers or not. Because once you start thinking about all that, you're just going to stress yourself out. So, while it's a good, interesting thing to think about what tropes are, you don't have to think about any of this stuff. And you can still, as long as you write a story that you enjoy, readers are going to enjoy reading it. Because if you enjoy it, someone else, of course, is going to enjoy it. It's not like the billions and billions of people in the world, you're the only one that enjoys your story. It's not going to be the case. So, I mean, even this, they mentioned this guy, Nicholas Sparks. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of Nicholas Sparks fans, right? So, I mean, and thinking about, what is that romance author? Colleen Hoover. She writes, I mean, in my opinion, a lot of her stories are similar. Similar kind of plot line. But she has a lot of fans, right? So some people are not going to like that, but some people are. And the people that are the ones that count, right? Because those are the readers that are going to give you sales, right? So just write what you want to write. Write you enjoy. Don't think about all this stuff. That's my opinion on this article. That's my opinion. But you have your own opinions. Let me know in the comments. This was just a, yeah. Anyway, that was my reaction, opinion. Let me know that if you want to see more videos like this where I just find an article or something and I just react to it. Yeah. And it's not going to have my avatar on it, obviously, because I don't edit my videos. So, anyway, that's all I have for you on this article, Tropes, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, published in February 28, 2024 by Trisha Jen Loher on the Jane Friedman site. So, there. That's it. Yeah. So, anyway, let me know what you think in the comments.